Hello and welcome to this video. So the Omen extension is not just for freeze teams, it's a universal mechanic and you will start to see it more often when you use Mona in your teams as a burst support, or a main DPS. A quick video, half of it's going to provide the relevant information about the Omen extension and the other half is reference to resource purposes. After further research and information released over the last year, I wanted to create a more updated version explaining what is the Omen extension. The Omen extension is essentially a universal mechanic that can be applied to any team comps or any specific enemy types. The reason why I wanted to create this video is because we are starting to see more enemies with high stagger resistance or have hyper armor or elemental armor added into their mechanics. There was a lot of information that I wanted to mention about that in the Mona stagger resistant vaporized combo, which was seen in my previous video. So I just didn't include that aspect into it. But now I just want to mention that the Omen extension is another mechanic that is also included into that combo itself. I know it sounds a bit crazy and it may be a lot to take in. So if you're unfamiliar with the Mona burst mechanics, I would suggest checking out that video first. You can essentially use the concept of the Omen extension throughout multiple different teams. You may hear a lot about the Omen extension in freeze teams, particular with the Morgana team. The Omen extension mechanic is a separate mechanic to freeze, but it is seen quite often in a freeze team. So basically, the Omen extension, stagger or poise resistance, and extending freeze duration. These are all separate mechanics that intertwine together, similar to the Mona stagger resistant vaporized combo. I'm not really going to cover full in detail about the extending freeze duration in this video, as that mechanic is just complete spaghetti. As freeze duration concepts involve a strong understanding of how the elements work, such as freeze being the 8th element and taking into consideration elemental gauges and decay rate. But you can read more about it within the KeqingMains Theorycrafting website. Extending freeze is actually more complicated than vaporize. So yeah, let's take the concept of Omen extension. It is basically when the Omen bubble is applied onto the enemy. This applies Omen amplifying infliction onto the enemy, meaning that the enemy can take additional damage while the bubble is latched onto an enemy. With stagger resistant enemies, this naturally extends the duration when you are hitting the enemy with any attacks while they are in their stagger resistant state. Not much you can benefit out of it, besides landing a few ults here and there, but it is something good to bear in mind. To put it simply, there are a few factors that influence the extension of Mona's Omen duration. Starting off with stagger resistance. The enemy cannot be staggered, therefore Mona's bubble cannot pop. Enemies that hold an object shield, such as the wooden shield Lawachurl, this would kind of be considered into this category. To put it simply, let's just put it into that category. Then you would have frozen enemies. So frozen enemies take 0 stagger damage value. You cannot stagger them in a frozen state. Full stop. You can clip them, however, but they won't stagger. This means the bubble will not pop until the enemy becomes unfrozen. Elemental shields, Abyss, Lectors, and Heralds and Mages, they possess an elemental shield and they do not take damage, and they are resistant to stagger when they have their shields up. And then you would have hyper armor or elemental armor units, such as Lawachurls and the Kairagis. They are perfect examples. To put it simply, they cannot be staggered when they are in their infusion state. This means the bubble will never pop on demand. it will only just time out when they are in that state. Why would the Omen extension be useful to you? Remember that the concept can be used universally throughout any teams, just as long as it fits into Mona's bubbles criteria, which were the categories I mentioned just now. Now, for the rest of the video is a list of some of the current enemies seen in 2.0 that have high stagger resistance coded into their attack animation cycles, or enemies that have hyper armor or elemental armor, whatever you want to call it. And then you would also have the elemental shielded enemies. I'll show you some of these examples so you can fully understand of this concept and take advantage of the Omen extension more often in future. The reason why this concept may be important is take the Raiden Shogun boss fight as an example. Literally from my first impression, it just had 100% stagger resistance, or it had some sort of hidden elemental armor encoded into her. We don't know the full details just yet. And hopefully if she's ever released as a boss again, perhaps we can do further testing on that. Nothing confirmed, but I also suspect that La Signora may have some of these mechanics in there. Anyways, here is a list of enemies. Not all enemies will be shown. You can find out more enemies within the spreadsheet in the KeqingMains Discord. And thanks for watching, guys.
これが運命です。冒険だ冒険。運命よ、ここにいでよ。風の雲。運命よ、ここにいでよ。みんなは俺が運命には逆らいません。風の歌、雲の。Fate is upon you. Clouds high, the birds come. I got down. 雲が借りなく時。全員どけ。吸引テスト開始。みんながそばにいてくれるわ。燃えろ。みんながそばにいてくれるわ。運命です。全力攻撃。風の神よ。合いません。破滅をもう止められない。はっ、それ。くらい。雲が借りなく。風の歌、雲の行くごと。いざしょ風私にこともうからいません。せい全力攻撃だ。みんながそばにいて雲が借り吸引テスト開始。